My name is Caley. This is Heavy Chef, South Africa's biggest and fastest growing entrepreneur organization. Not that we should be competing amongst entrepreneur organizations, because we are all in this to stimulate positive change in South Africa, this beautiful country that we live in, from the ground up. Today we're talking community, and we're going to be doing so with Sam Bendzulla, who is the managing director of an event called AfrikaBurns, which I'm pretty sure you have heard of. Ladies and gentlemen, Sam Bendzulla on building a community. Sam, thank you so much for being with us today. I must say, I am so excited for this interview, really and truly. I get super excited with all my guests, but I'm very, very grateful to have you here today in particular. So thank you. I want to start by asking you the question, what does the AfrikaBurns community actually look like? So we're looking at both the event, so the offline community, as well as the online or digital side of your community.
Cool. Our community is vast. The community that congregates in the desert at Tankwa Town once a year is anywhere between 12 and 14,000 people, ranging in age from infancy to octogenarians, crossing all social spectrums. We are gender fluid, we are non-binary, we are playful, and we are principled. And we are a group of people who are actively engaged in accessing more tangible, connected ways of engaging with the world and one another. And we do that through a sense of play and experimentation. The digital community is far bigger. I think we have around 80,000 people in our official Facebook page. We have a growing number on our Facebook group, and there are, I think, around 69 other AfrikaBurns unofficial presences on Facebook that are community driven.
Gotcha.
So our community is highly motivated. They understand the agency that they have within the community, and they are not afraid to use it. And that is what makes our community so beautiful and so powerful.
So powerful. I mean, just those statistics alone, and the fact that it's community driven. I mean, you guys have not gone out there and created any of these groups. This is your community that are bringing more community to life. Is quite remarkable. A lot of it is volunteer based.
Yeah.
Now, I think this is the question of all questions. What is the human truth behind what is bringing these people together?
So it is very hard to describe. It's an intangible sense of purpose that ignites something inside of your soul that I think children naturally have, and that has a tendency to dim and diminish in adulthood with the pressures of everyday life and the things that we are exposed to and conditioned around in our environment that disconnect us.
Sure.
And the AfrikaBurns experiment is an exercise in connection. It's an experiment in temporary community building, and we are trying to extend the experiment beyond the temporary and beyond the footprint of Tankwa Town in the Tankwa Karoo, because that thing that it ignites in people is so important, especially in a society like South Africa that has been so deeply traumatized by our history and remains compromised by the legacy of structural apartheid. It's important to help people open their hearts and connect on a very human level with one another. So that is the core that I think we center around. We have 11 guiding principles, but community is at the heart of all of that. Each one of them speaks to ways of being in a community that are deep and rich and meaningful and have integrity.
I think it's beautiful. I mean, I really, really do. The fact that it's an experiment, that you're trying to please correct me if I use the wrong words, because I don't understand it like you do, build something or allow something to create itself out in the desert that then people bring back into the real world. So there's an actual, there's something that they bring back and something changes within them.
Yes. and hopefully sparks change within their social circles and will have a positive benefit rippling out into the wider South African context.
I'm smiling because it's really beautiful. Like it's really, it makes me feel something different today just speaking about the topic. So thank you so much for setting this journey in motion. And it's I think bigger than all of us, which is amazing. Before we were rolling, we were talking about Burning Man, which is, I guess, the origin or something along the line of where AfrikaBurn has come from. Do you mind telling me a little bit more about Burning Man, actually, how Burning Man came to fruition?
So I'm not so expert on Burning Man, but I'll give it a bash. Right. Burning Man, for me, is the mothership. Yes. The mothership that brought to life the original spark, that lit the fire that now is this global community of hundreds of thousands of people, actually. It was it's sort of self-generated out of a spontaneous act by a group of friends about 33 years ago on Baker Beach in San Francisco. They gathered together, they built a wicker man, and they burned him in effigy. And they had a bit of a party around that, and it was a very cathartic, transformative experience.
What does the burning of the wooden structure actually signify? I've always wanted to know that before I allow you to go on. Sorry, excuse me for interrupting there.
No, that's fine. So I think it means different things to different people, but in the context of the burn itself and the burning of the central, in our case, San Clan, what it represents is an opportunity for the whole community to come together at a still point in time and focus their attentions on something that is deeply symbolic for us, that has been charged and imbued with the emotional journeys that people go on when they're out there in the desert. And you sort of, it ends up taking on energy. And then the act of burning is the sort of consummate act of letting go. It's purging, it's transformative, and it's sacrificial in a way.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm going to take you back to the fact that we were talking about the origin story of Burning Man, and you were saying there were people in San Francisco that gathered on a beach, and that was the first one.
Yeah, and it was a very powerful experience for those people. And as people do, they tell the stories about the powerful experiences that they've had. And it speaks to somebody who comes along the next time. And so it grew. And it grew to the point where the authorities of San Francisco were no longer happy to allow this thing to happen on the beach and asked them to move along quietly. And they realized, this group of people realized that what had grown up around this act was something very powerful and beneficial, and that they needed to find a place where it could exist. So they went to look for that place. They found it in the Black Rock Desert in Nevada, and so began the origins of Black Rock City. Black Rock City and Burning Man became mythical. They became absolutely mythical. It was a temporary autonomous zone where you could do pretty much whatever you pleased, and acts of profound creativity and self-expression proliferated, and people need that platform. And the stories of this thing spread like wildfire, and they spread far and wide. And those who had been felt compelled to bring that transformative experience back to the people that they love and to their communities. And so it was that the regional networks began to develop.
Got you.
Where AfrikaBurn came out of that was a group of people in different parts of the country, not well connected to each other at all, but loosely connected through a sort of renegade, disruptive, creative scene, had either heard about or been to Burning Man and were absolutely inspired by the idea and talking about introducing it. And somehow they found each other.
Wow.
And ended up gathering on a small holding in Bot River called Malplas. This group of people who had, some of whom knew each other and some of whom didn't, and others that they'd pulled in.
Including you?
No, not including me.
Okay.
Not including me. That they found that they had the intention, they had the capacity, and they had pooled resources, and they had a benevolent benefactor who was willing to front the initial funding for the hard costs, and they made it happen, which was incredible. I wasn't part of that group, but I was part of the extended circle of people that the idea eventually reached. And my husband and I, Nicholas, who wasn't my husband at the time, we were very excited by this. It was such a difficult thing to get to grips with. You couldn't really understand what it was that you were going to go and be part of, but it was a compelling idea. It was a compelling idea to drive so far to such a remote and inhospitable place and bring everything that you needed to be comfortable, and also bring things to share, and also bring things to make and do and build with your own sweat equity and at your own cost. And that first experience, I think there were between 800 and 1,000 of us there, which was far more than they had expected. For the people that were there, this was an incredibly powerful experience. They weren't ready for us. The toilets were still being built. The clan effigy was still under construction. In fact, I think we only managed to complete it on the last day of the event. And it was almost inhospitably hot.
Is it in the same area that AfrikaBurns is in now? Is it the exact same space?
It's in the exact same space.
Okay.
Next year will be our last year in that space, actually. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the world, an incredibly special place, Stonehenge Private Nature Reserve. But it's not in November anymore, because November...
Oh, so you actually, the first one was hosted in November,
The
right?
first one was
Wow, it must have been
November,
hot.
the second one was September, and then we pulled it.
Wow, and the
forward.
water, hey, I can imagine that people were like, really, the water, it's a good lesson, right?
Yes.
Like the water shortage out there. Okay, this is amazing. So that was 2007.
That was 2007.
That was the first event, okay, of 1,000 people. So you've been along this journey from 1,000 to, you said it was around 15,000 people.
14,000 was our peak, and we've cut it back since then because it was an uncomfortable...
Okay, so you're actually limiting the amount of people that can come to the experience.
We've been limiting the amount of people, we've been limiting the amount of people since it became clear that our popularity or people's enthusiasm for the idea was outstripping our team's
resources.
capacity.
Okay, got you, which is quite a remarkable problem to have. Not everybody gets to that point. It's a remarkable problem to have. So I'm going to bring it back to entrepreneurship just because I have to at Heavy Chef. And I would like to know, I mean, you guys have grown this thing, as you say, from 1,000 to 14,000, or the people that you have catalyzed into growing this thing. You've been along for the journey. You must have learned many, many lessons.
Yes, absolutely.
I would like to know if you are willing to transfer some of those lessons back into our community that at this point in time sits at about 30,000 people that also want to build something, right? So they're builders, they're starting from nothing and they want to grow. And community, we have realized, is at the core of entrepreneurship. So what lessons do you have for the guys in our team that are also looking at building community? And it doesn't have to be hardcore business lessons, it can be things, things that you've experienced.
Yeah. So the first thing is to make sure that what you are doing feels meaningful to you, because you will not be able to give of your best unless you feel deeply committed to and passionate about something. And your community starts with your team, the immediate team around you. If they are committed to the project and passionate about the project, there are no better advocates for your cause than the people that work with you close to it. The second thing is to acknowledge that you are not expert in everything, and that you have a unique perspective, and that other members of the community have a different perspective. And so you want to make sure that you're making space at the table for the interests and perspectives of everybody in your team and in your community, irrespective of whether you feel that perspective is legitimate or rational or not. Most importantly, a community looks after itself. A community understands that it will need help and that it must help equally. And so you want to find in your community the people that can mentor you in the things that you are not strong in, and you want to mentor the people around you that seek mentorship from you. That's how you build a sense of teamwork and trust and respect.
Apart from community, it also speaks a lot to me. I was thinking of leadership, right? You know, a lot of those principles can be applied to leadership as well.
Absolutely.
But thank you, that was very valuable.
So I mean, this is in a way cuts to the heart of one of the elements of building a community, is that if you are holding the center of a community around its central values, then you are actually leadership. You've taken a leadership position in that community. And so you have a responsibility to behave in line with ethical leadership towards that community.
Got you. And I mean, we're not going to delve into it's 11 principles, right? That Africa Burn or Burning Man, all of the burning things out there are based upon. It's 11 guiding principles,
well,
correct?
There's 10 for everybody else, and we've got 11.
And what was the 11th one that was added into South Africa?
The 11th one that we developed is Each One Teach One, because we realized that for a community to feel the integrity of its own agency within the community, everyone is a cultural custodian. And so we all have a responsibility to communicate what the shared values are in our community.
Okay, and that's exactly what you're doing today. So thank you so much, and that's very much what Heavy Chef is based upon. We actually bring people such as yourself to give back into a community of people that want to learn, and that hopefully the lessons can be shared at this point in time through this very camera over there, but soon you're going to be standing on a stage, so that's very, very exciting. Sam Bendzulla, thank you so much. Sam Bendzulla, thank you so much for being with us today. We sincerely appreciate it, and we're so looking forward to learning more from you. Today we learned from Sam Bendzulla, this wonderful human being over here, about the concept of community building, and who better to hear it from than someone who has journeyed alongside AfrikaBurns since its inception at 1,000 community members to in 2019 having a community of 14,000, and that is just on the offline component of the community that we're looking at. Now, if you would like to find out more about community building because you're an entrepreneur that thinks it's important to your journey, then of course you can do so by visiting Heavy Chef at www.heavychef.com. Ladies and gentlemen, until next week, hamba kahle.